we are going 1.3 and 1.3, and so go ahead and follow along on your paper as I go ahead and go through what these notes are. So you have an angle here. You have angle AVB, or you could also call it angle BVA. And angles are made up of two rays. An array is where it points and goes off into a direction forever. All right, so this angle is made up of two rays. The first ray, starting here, and it's going on in this direction, would be ray VA. We write it as ray VA and not AV because we have to write where it starts and where it goes off and into the direction forever. So the first one again would be ray VA. And this is the symbol for ray, okay, that little arrow above it. We have another ray going off this direction, so this would be ray VB, all right? Again, we have to start with V first because this is where it starts and this is where it goes. So that would be ray VB, okay? They define, all right, they define two rotation angles. So we actually have two angles with just this, what looks like one angle. So the angle named angle AVB, and this is a sign for angle, AVB, so that would be starting here because this is where A is starting on this ray, going here, ending at B. That's how it tells us. So we start at the ray with the A, and we're ending on the ray with the B, is a counterclockwise turn from ray VA. Like I just said, we're starting on this ray to ray VB, ending on this ray. All right. Our other angle is angle named BVA, so that means we're starting at this ray and going to this one. So starting here and going and ending here. So that would be angle BVA, okay? This is a counterclockwise turn from ray VB, because that's where we started, to ray VA, because that's where we ended. And as you can see, this is a reflex angle, okay? So using your benchmark angles, you need to find the approximate measures for the following angles. So if we take a look at this angle right here, BVA, we know that straight up and down, if I use my ruler and make my quadrants here, my X and Y's, I can kind of see where these angles go. So this angle, if this is 0, okay, so it's just backwards. Okay, if this is where we're starting, okay, or actually, no, sorry. This is where we're starting, because this is where our arrow is starting, and here's where it's ending. I'm going to turn my paper so I can actually see it a little bit better. Okay, so here's 0. It opens up. Straight up and down would be 90. Okay, straight across would be 180. This is about halfway in between. All right. And so that would be halfway in between. We know that is about 135 degrees. All right. It might be helpful to open up your notebooks to your benchmark angles to kind of take a look at that as well. All right, I'm going to do that myself so I have them in front of me. And then for BVA, okay, we're starting on this. So I'm going to turn it upside down because this is where I'm starting. I always like to have 0 on the right side, okay, so I can go counterclockwise. See, okay, if this is 0, straight up and down would be 90. Straight across would be 180, and here's where the angle ends, and that's halfway between 180 and 270. And we know that halfway between 180 and 270 would be 225 degrees, according to our benchmark angles. Okay. So I have a couple different types of examples here. The first example looks like the examples you're going to see in Part A on page 16. All right, so you're going to go, at the end of this, you're going to work on parts A, B, and C. And so we're going to do an example from each part so that you know exactly what to do. So on part A, you can see that there are two angles here. There's one that starts here on this ray and ends here. And then there's one that starts on this ray and ends at this ray. So let's start with this angle right here, where it starts here and ends here. Okay, so it starts here and ends here. So if I know that this is 0, and if I kind of take a look at, okay, here's 90, Okay, starts here. Here's 90, and it looks like it's about halfway in between. So that means angle BVA, because it starts on this ray and goes to this ray. So that would be angle BVA is about 45 degrees. We also have the angle where it starts on this ray, okay? Starts on this ray, and this is, we're going to say this is 0. Again, this is 0 degrees, so it starts here and goes all the way to this right here. So if I take a look at this and I follow this up, this would be 90 right here. Straight across would be 180. Okay, straight down would be 270, and this is about halfway in between 270 and 360, a full rotation. And we know, according to our benchmark angles, that halfway between 270 and 360 is 315 degrees. Okay, so when I go to write out what this angle is, we started here, which was angle A, okay, and we ended here, which is angle B, all right, and so that would be angle AVB, and we know that it's halfway between 270 and 360, so it would be about 315 degrees. Okay, so that's what you're doing with those. Now, part B is sketching a rotation angle with the given degrees. So what I would do is use your benchmark angles to help you, and I would always go ahead and draw your X and Y axis there. Okay, so if I draw that, we know that this right here is 0. We know that this is 90, this is 180, and this is 270. And a full rotation is 360. Okay, we want to find 120 degrees. Well, we know that straight up is 90. We know straight across is 180. So this number is going to be in between these two benchmark angles. Okay, and if you take a look at your benchmark angles, you know that halfway in between is 135. So now we know it's in between 90 and 135 because we have 120. If you take a look at the benchmark angles that represent the 30 degrees and the 60 degrees, we know that halfway in between these two, or not halfway, but in between these 2 points is that benchmark angle of 120. Okay, that's why benchmark angles are so important to take a look at. Same here for 330 degrees. Go ahead and make, your X and Y axis. You have 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, and a full rotation is 360. Well, go ahead, you have 330 degrees. We know that 330 degrees would be between the two numbers of 270 and 360. We know that that's between those two numbers. So our angle is going to lie somewhere in this area. All right, if you take a look at your benchmark angles, you will see that halfway in between is 315 degrees. So now we know it's in between 315 and 360. And if you take a look at the benchmark angles that are the 30 degrees and 60 degree angles, you will see that 330 lies about right here. Again, I cannot stress enough, you have got to use your benchmark angles to draw where these angles lie. Okay, and for part C, you have to, these are going to have multiple rotations. So we talked about how, one full rotation would be 360, and then you can keep going. Okay, so let's go ahead on these. So you're going to draw your X and Y axis. Okay, this is a 1/3 angle. Okay, and remember how so here's 1 equal part and 3. And then you can also split this into, so 180 degrees. Okay, well, you can do some math work. If you have 180 degrees, okay, times third, you will see in the calculator that you are going to get, and you can transfer this into a decimal. Okay, remember you take 1 divided by 3 to make that decimal. This will give you 60 degrees. So 1/3 of 180 would be right here, 60 degrees. Okay. You can also think about how can I split this up into thirds equally. And if you split it up into thirds equally, you will see that here's a third, here's a third, and here's a third. Okay. So 1/3 would be this area right here, which ends at 60 degrees. All right, here's another example. I'm going to go ahead and make my X and Y axis. We know that this is where 0 degrees starts. Okay, 3 ends of a right angle. Okay, so that's telling us 3 whole right angles. So I'm going to go 1, so here's a right angle. Another right angle would end here at 180. I'm just going to go ahead and label these. So here's 1, here's 2, here's 3 whole 90-degree angles, and then 2/3. Well, if I split this portion up into 3 equal parts, okay, I need 2/3 of this right angle. So here's a third, here's a third. So I'm going to end at this angle right here, 2/3. And that angle, if you look at your benchmark angle, is labeled 330 degrees. So our angle would be this angle right here. That would be 1 whole, 3 whole, and then 2/3, which is 330 degrees. Okay, you're going to go to page 16 and 17 in your textbook, and you're going to work on parts A, B, and D.